Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Cheltenham Borough Council Planning Committee, being held on Friday the 4th of July 2025. My name is Councillor Garth Barnes and I'm Chair of the committee. This meeting is being streamed live to Cheltenham Borough Council's YouTube channel, and the recording of the meeting will be held for 4 years. If there are any breaks in transmission to the YouTube stream, the meeting will be adjourned for a short period until any issues are resolved. If you are here to make a representation to the meeting, you are consulting to the use of the sound and video recordings for broadcasting and training purposes. Please be aware that CCTV and audio recording is now in operation in the public gallery. The recordings will be held by the council for 5 months. And please note, no fire alarm test is expected, so if the alarm does sound, you should immediately make your way to the nearest exit. So, item 1, apologies. We have apologies from Simon Wheeler, and we have no substitute. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do any members? Councillor Andrews.
Yes, I'm just going to inform everyone that I'm a county councillor and I've seen the late representation from the officers at the county council. I haven't been involved with the writing of that letter and have not predetermined the application, so I am perfectly entitled to take part in the item this afternoon.
Thank you. And as we have 2 other county councillors, Councillor Doby and Councillor Williams, I assume you're making the same declarations?
Yes. We are, yes.
Thank you. Item 3 then is the declaration of independent site visits. Where do I start? I'll start with Barbara Clark.
I've visited twice. I've walked the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I visited yesterday and walked the northern bit of the site.
Councillor Oliver.
As did I.
Councillor Steinhardt.
Oh, that's better. Yes, I visited the site on the 22nd of June and spent a very happy morning on a sunny day wandering all over the site, and it was very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you for that descriptive declaration. Can I also say that I have visited the site also, and I'm aware of the site. Okay. There are no public questions, so we'll move straight in to item 5, which is the consideration of the planning application in front of us today, land at West Cheltenham, Southern Parcel, Fiddler's Green Lane. And I'll ask Nicole Gollan to introduce it for us, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is an outline. Can you hear? Oh, I don't need too much. This is an outline application for 576 homes, along with around 126,000 square metres of employment space. The applicants are Henry Boot Development and Cheltenham Borough Council's landowner. The application is outlined as reserved matters would be needed in the future to make a complete permission. The outline is not concerned with the exact details now, but the broader implications of the scheme and the principle. The site is located to the west of Cheltenham and is allocated under Policy A7 of the JCS. From a landscape perspective, the site is relatively unremarkable within the landscape and exhibits a strong edge of settlement character. It does not constitute a prominent or significant component of the overall appreciation of the wider landscape. It is perceived as parcel farmland located in close proximity to existing residential developments to the north, east and south. This is just photos from Fiddler's Green and then once you're in the site, towards GCHQ. You will have seen from your site visits that there are 2 public rights of way which cross the site. The rest of the site is largely inaccessible. The proposal involves the removal or partial removal of 45 trees or hedgerows, with 10 recommended for removal due to poor condition. Most losses are from low quality specimens, with only 5 being of moderate quality. However, 75% of the trees, including all veteran trees and those protected by a TPO, will be retained and safeguarded during the construction and when the development is built out. Replacement tree planting is planned in the landscape strategy to compensate for any tree loss, with further details to be provided at the reserve matters stage. As well as the landscape strategy, the site achieves more than 10% net biodiversity gain. It isn't technically caught by the statutory requirement to provide net biodiversity gain, but they have provided extensive net gain, whether on site or off site, to meet the aspirations of the Golden Valley SPD. This application only forms part of the West Cheltenham strategic allocation. The proposals for the southern parcel tie into other live applications for the JCS, Strategic Allocation A7. St Modwyn's in the north will be determined shortly, as viability discussions are concluding, and there are no other insurmountable issues. Similarly, the HBD Northern application will be determined shortly, as they only need to undertake minor design tweaks. The NEMA application in the south is less advanced and will currently be refused due to the lack of SANG strategy. The LPA has worked extensively with all the key partners and statutory stakeholders to ensure collaboration takes place across the different land parcels and across the infrastructure, and to provide the infrastructure needed to deliver both schemes successfully as individual land parcels and collectively as strategic allocation. Whilst in an ideal world, the strategic allocation would be presented in its entirety, this is not the case, and the JCS policy specifically provides for this in the recognition that strategic sites are complex and often involve different land ownerships and land promotion. It is important to note that the relevant JCS policies do not prevent development from moving forward if one party disagrees with the comprehensive master plan. And it does not prevent separate planning applications from coming forward on a strategic allocation. Officers have worked hard to ensure the alignment with policy SA1, which states that development proposals should enable a comprehensive master plan to be delivered across the developing area within a strategic allocation, which has been examined in full in the officer report. I will now run through the key parameter plans that are conditioned as part of this outline. The land use parameter plan provides a comprehensive overview of the development, primarily indicating a mixed use approach throughout the area, shown in orange. However, it specifically designates the Innovation Centre building for employment use, only shown in red. Since the submission, the application and the Golden Valley project has been identified in the UK's National Cyber Security Strategy. It has been brought to our attention that there are individuals in their locality with sensitive issues in relation to noise and environmental disturbance. This has been considered, and on balance, officers are content that noise matters can be dealt with at the reserve matters stage. This being from the residential developments surrounding the site, and largely, as you can see, the barriers between the site and those residential dwellings would be mixed use. The master plan demonstrates an integration of uses across the site with varying building heights. The taller buildings are clustered around 2 commercial areas in the north and south. Lower buildings, predominantly residential, are located around the edges of the site to respond to the existing residential context. The height strategy combines the Golden Valley SPD objective for cyber central area to be high density with the objective to reflect precedents in Cheltenham. This has been largely achieved through taller commercial buildings, apartments and terraced townhouses. The landscape strategy is a defining element of the master plan. The Open Spaces Parameter Plan illustrates the strategy to create a north-south landscape route through the site, with east-west green spaces that branch off from it. In addition, hardscape public realm spaces are proposed within the north and south commercial areas. Here we have a map of the site shown in red, the applicant's other site shown in red just to the north of it, and then Leckhampton Hill shown in yellow. Natural England agree with the SANG strategy as submitted. As noted in the officer report, there will be off-site SANG at Leckhampton Hill, shown here in yellow. The occupation 120 limit regarding off-site SANG is now within the Section 106 rather than the gramping condition referred to in the report. Natural England advice states that the permission may be granted provided it can be ascertained the proposal would not adversely affect the integrity of the Cotswold Beechwood Sack. The Council's view is that the negatively worded provisions in the Section 106 that's being drafted prevent any further occupation until the off-site SANG mitigation is secured, which would ensure there would be no adverse impacts on the sack. Thus, limiting the occupation to 120 until the off-site SANG is created, and also requiring the on-site SANG to be completed prior to the first occupation of that relevant phase, removes all reasonable doubt that the adverse impacts could occur on the sack. As such, as per the officer report, the Regulation 63 test is met. The reasonable prospect test is also met. In their role as applicant, CBC do own the site at Leckhampton Hill, and they have stated a willingness to sign the Section 106, stating they would bring this forward. The movement plan shows the various connections between the site and the surrounding area. Vehicle connections to the southern neighbourhoods are achieved by Fiddler's Green, and the rest of the site is accessed via a roundabout off of Telstar Way. There are a host of active travel works which are shown in detail within the transport assessment submitted with this application. Close engagement has taken place with both Active Travel England and the local highway authority on this package of works, which has been agreed and secured via condition on this recommendation. I will now walk you through key elements of the illustrative master plan with extracts from the design code that has been submitted with this outline application. Within the north of the application site, there will be some commercial buildings, a mobility hub, a large piece of open space, and a large public square surrounded by commercial buildings. They've titled this Festival Village within the design code. In the centre of the site, named Cyber Central, there will be mixed-use buildings of a considerable height and the Innovation Centre. Towards the end of the site is the character area titled Hatherley Gardens in the design code, which will utilise terrace and mews typologies to define this residential area along Hatherley Brook, as well as providing a large piece of open space along with sustainable urban drainage. I will now move through some of the key themes and key issues within this application. An energy sustainability statement was initially submitted in November 2023. And throughout the application process, officers have collaborated with the applicant to review and enhance the environmental standards of the application. The applicant completed the Climate Change SPD checklist, which has been reviewed extensively against the Climate SPD. The applicant now proposes a mixed-use development that exceeds national standards with a focus on achieving high environmental performance. The Energy and Sustainability Statement includes commitments to both operational energy and embodied carbon reduction, aiming to meet the REBA 2025 performance targets immediately and REBA 2030 targets. 30. Key commitments that are included are delivering net zero carbon homes where possible and buildings, incorporating building with nature principles. The site will not be connected to the gas grid, being a wholly electrical scheme. Managing surface water on site via sustainable methods, limiting water use in domestic buildings, utilising solar panels, air source heat pumps and electrical vehicle charging for both residential and commercial buildings, and a circular approach to materials, waste and water. The application had viability issues. As such, the applicant submitted a viability assessment to the LPA. This was independently reviewed by the council's viability assessor and has gone under immense scrutiny from officers over the course of several months. The balance between affordable housing and Section 106 has been a difficult challenge with this application. And whilst the site could have provided the full Junction 10 ask from the local highway authority and the other full Section 106 asks, as noted in the officer report, this would have resulted in 0% affordable housing from this development for the future and existing residents of Cheltenham. On balance, this was not considered to meet the expectations of the NPPF in creating mixed and balanced communities. As such, officers undertook Section 106 prioritisation. And after this work and a slight adjustment in the affordable housing tenure mix, in that we added first homes, the council's independent viability assessor re-evaluated the appraisals and determined that the site could now provide an increased affordable housing level to 26%. Whilst this is acknowledged it is not the 35% required by policy, it is felt it is the best balance of Section 106 and affordable housing provision for this scheme. There have been representations that the council's landowner could forgo profits and a request to defer this application on this basis. However, it is not appropriate to require any landowner to receive less than a normal profit, and the profit that has been allowed of the developer is typical for any developer. Should the landowner wish to consider this, then it would be outside of planning for them to forego any profit towards any schemes, be it Junction 10 or anything else. There are other sources of funding for Section 106 asks. For example, the ones that have taken a hit, such as libraries in Junction 10. Other sources of funding could be SIL, and should GCC wish to bid for these funds, it is in their gift to do so. All of the key planning issues have been addressed in extensive detail in the officer report. However, the officer team acknowledged the very late responses received on this application, circulated to you yesterday and this morning, and therefore I will take some additional time to draw out a few key matters raised to aid members. It is important to note that the late representations from NEMA, GCC and the MP do not raise any matters that are not already addressed in the officer report. nor do their representation change the officer's recommendation today. In terms of prematurity, the application went through extensive pre-application and the outline has been with the local planning authority for nearly 2 years. The local planning authority is required to determine applications when they are ready and is measured on its performance by government. Following extensive work from officers and the applicant, the LPA are able to determine this application, hence why it is before Planning Committee. GACS Policy AC1 clearly recognises there are different approaches to bringing strategic allocations forward. Questions have been raised around odour mitigation. As you know, the site requires Severn Trent Water to undertake mitigation works to remove large parts of the site from odour pollution. Odour is addressed fully in the report. The test for the Grampian condition that has been attached to this recommendation to mitigate any harm from odour is whether there is a reasonable prospect of the necessary actions being completed within the time limits imposed by the permission. Severn Trent Water has indicated that they are likely to undertake the mitigation works between 2027 and 2028. Additionally, the LPA has recently met with senior representatives from Severn Trent Water, and they have had further assurance that they are going to provide these works during the 2027-2028 timetable. However, should we be in a position that these works do not come forward in the timescale envisaged, then the application is presented with appropriate conditions to mitigate this. Turning to the provision of NHS facilities, specifically a GP surgery. While it is possible that the other application for the GP surgery, being the St Modwyn's outline, may never come to fruition, this is unlikely. Furthermore, even if the St Modwyn site isn't built out, this application for 576 homes would only result in a smaller increase in population. As such, this scheme alone would not justify the need for a new GP surgery. The LPA has taken a pragmatic approach. When examining the allocation as a whole, it is clear there is provision within the allocation for a GP surgery. The developer of this application, HBD, along with the one proposing the GP surgery, St Modwyn's, are in agreement with this. And the LPA is satisfied that it meets the necessary infrastructure requirements. Additionally, the NHS has been fully engaged throughout the process of this application and agrees with this approach. You will note from the GCC letter representation that there is a disconnect between the views of the LPA and the County Council. The LPA has been consistent in its approach, both in terms of providing evidence to the M5 Junction 10 Development Control Order examination, through pre-application and this application itself, and our shared response with Gloucester and Tewkesbury to the revisions to the Local Development Guide. And this has been on being evidence-led and clearly demonstrating the impacts arising from individual developments. The transport modelling utilised by the county is a strategic model, and there has been extensive work through the county's HTM team. However, the transport assessment worked on extensively through the application by the applicant's transport consultants, detailed modelling completed either via isolated junction modelling or micro-simulation modelling. This provides a more granular impact assessment, which a strategic model by its very nature cannot. To advise members, the officer report states that the applicant has not had access to the GC3M model. This is incorrect, as the applicant has confirmed they have seen it. However, what hasn't been seen is the more granular implications arising from that model. The LPA has been clear with GCC on the challenges around Section 106. and the LPA has had to undertake prioritisation within the overall planning balance. The LPA has received KC advice on its Section 106 prioritisation, which found our assessment to be reasonable and robust. A letter from the MP has been received today, highlighting the employment benefits of the scheme. The scheme is unusual, as many strategic allocations struggle with providing employment. However, the scheme includes a nationally important innovation centre noted in the government's modern industrial strategy and provides extensive commercial space, providing approximately 2,426 jobs alongside housing provision. The proposal fully accords with the employment ambitions of the development plan and the Golden Valley SPD. As required by the NPPF, significant weight will be placed on the need to support economic growth in the overall planning balance. The application plays a significant role in the West Cheltenham strategic allocation and is a key component of the adopted JCS spatial strategy. Delivering this site provides substantial benefits, including addressing the urgent need for housing, including affordable housing, within the allocated plan period up to 2031 and beyond. And this is particularly important in light of our lack of 5-year housing land supply. And generating significant economic benefits through on-site employment, being 1,304 jobs approximately in Cheltenham during both construction and once the development is built out and occupied, as well as creating off-site employment and increased economic spending in the wider area, approximately being 2,426 jobs in total. However, despite these benefits, it's not surprising that a development proposal of this scale and complexity raises various issues and concerns, leading to potential tensions and conflicts with other policy interests and interested parties. Planning is not black and white, and this planning committee are well versed in the judgments and balances that sometimes need to be made across applications that are presented to planning committee. Again, echoing the JCS, sometimes with regards to infrastructure, hard choices do need to be made. It is acknowledged that separate applications have been submitted by different developers, and not all the developers agree. Despite this less than ideal situation, this planning application, which constitutes a very large part of the strategic allocation, includes the development components required by the JCS. Due to the scale of this application site, it also facilitates a comprehensive scheme across the developable area within the strategic allocation, allowing infrastructure to be planned holistically in accordance with the JCS requirements and responds positively to the Golden Valley Development SPD and Climate Change SPD. Officers have adopted a balanced and pragmatic approach to Section 106 obligations, striving to create an appropriate mix of Section 106 contributions and a suitable level of affordable housing for existing and future Cheltenham residents. Although the scheme does not fulfil the entire contribution requested for M5 Junction 10, it will still yield a considerable sum from West Cheltenham allocation in a manner which we are confident meets the Section 106 tests and is evidence-led. Section 38(6) of the Planning Compulsory Purchase Act 2004 mandates that proposals be determined in accordance with the development plan, unless material planning considerations indicate otherwise. Section 72 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990 requires that the LPA considers the provisions of the development plan relevant to the application and any material planning considerations. For this application today, the MPPF is an important material planning consideration. MPPF paragraph 11D applies here. The tilted balance is engaged. Such that the balance is that planning permission should be granted unless any adverse impacts would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits when assessed against the policies in the MPPF when taken as a whole, having particular regard to key policies for directing development to sustainable locations, making effective use of land, securing well-designed places and providing affordable homes, individually or in combination. The benefits, namely substantial employment and dwellings for the borough, are clearly evident from this scheme, and collectively would be significant in their degree and the positive weight that has been given to them by officers. Furthermore, the proposal would align with the key policies of the MPPF to direct development to sustainable allocated locations, make effective use of land, provide employment, and provide affordable homes. The proposal would therefore accord with the policies of the MPPF taken as a whole. There are no adverse impacts that would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the clear benefits of the scheme. As such, outline planning permission is recommended for approval. The recommendation contains a comprehensive schedule of planning conditions. These conditions aim to mitigate the impacts of the development and ensure the delivery of a sustainable development that complies with the requirements of Policy A7 of the JCS, as well as the broader spatial strategy. Significant effort has gone into the collaboration documents within these conditions to create a cohesive overall allocation when considering all 4 current planning applications in West Cheltenham. Officers have sought wherever possible to be consistent with the approach to conditions as adopted in respect of the Elms Park application, with appropriate amendments. There are some amendments to the conditions that are at the end of the officer report, and I will just note these now for the benefit of committee. Please note there is a typo on condition 53, an odour works condition. It states prior to construction, but this should be prior to occupation, so it reads as the same as the other 2 odour conditions. Condition 42, which is the gramping condition on the J10 works, GCC this week requested for the term main works contract to be added to the condition, which is seen as very reasoned by officers and has been added. And as I touched on earlier, and as per the applicant's energy statement, and reflecting the Elms Park decision, we would like to add a condition that the development shall not be connected to gas and will be electrical. It's important to note that for the section 106, in the officer report, we've provided headline figures. These figures are not expected to change, it's simply the wording and the triggers that will be negotiated by officers post-committee. As discussed, the recommendation is to delegate authority to the head of planning to permit the application, subject to the conditions as set out in the report, the completion of the Section 106 obligations, and/or another legal agreement to deliver the infrastructure and other mitigation set out in the report, and in the event that the Section 106 is not signed within 9 months, that it would be reviewed by the head of planning in the consultation with the chair and vice chair of planning committee, and if no progress is being made, is given to the head of planning to refuse the application in the absence of the Section 106 agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole, for a comprehensive introduction to the case. I think it's important that we have that in this instance, as it's a very complicated and important application. I have 3 speakers to come forward. I'll say what I'm going to say at the start to save me repeating myself, that each speaker has 5 minutes and 5 minutes only to speak. I will be timing them, and I will give a 30 seconds, reminder that the speech will be coming to an end. So please bear that in mind when I ask you to come forward. The first speaker I have is Bernard Fisher, an objector to address the committee. So if you'd like to come forward.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay? I can't hear you.
You can start.
Fine. Well, firstly, let me say I am not an objector. I have supported the Golden Valley scheme since its original meeting by the Borough Council, which I was a member of, since Tim Atkin and David Oakhill brought it forward. I said in this chamber, out here where I'm stood, that there are golden opportunities in the Golden Valley, and there are, for not just the people of Cheltenham, but for Borough Council, if it still exists when it is up and running, because that factor was never anticipated at the time that we were part of a unitary. So all this will transfer to the unitary authority, whatever shape or size that happens to be. That has been confirmed by the deputy leader of the county council who are looking at the...
Bernard, can I stop you for a second? We have you down as an objector to the scheme.
Yeah, I'll come to that in a moment, sir, if I may.
Well, you at the moment, you're not proposing an objection to it.
Well,
you've
give me time, please.
Okay.
Yeah. Just things I would ask for deferral. I would also ask the question of the legal officer, as we are the principal owners of the land and stand to gain the most, whether it can be done under delegation. Because that is what it is clearly saying. It will be delegated to a single officer, but to consult. And the 106 can be refused by a single officer. That, I believe, is wrong. But I ask for deferral because not only of the Highway Authority asked for that, but it is still not mentioned in the presentation by the officer that Junction 10 has yet to be fully funded. As it stands now, as far as I can work out, it's something like £48 million short. Now, if that doesn't come forward, nobody has said what will happen to the Junction 10. We know the government have put 212 million into it so far. 20 million was put into it by the Elms Park developer. But we are still short, and I don't think we've got the final price yet. So if it hasn't got the money, who says it will happen? Now, I'm glad to say that the county authority, which is the Highway Authority, and there are officers here this afternoon who will answer your questions, I'm sure, has changed within the last couple of months. And it should be deferred until they've worked out the 106 and discussed and finally agreed how Junction 10 will be funded. Because without Junction 10, very little of this will happen. The cyber park will happen, but the housing won't. There's been a lot of talk of St Modwyn's, which is, as I understand it, the building arm of Severn Trent. But they've sold that to Miller Homes, which is an American company, sold it in February. So there may be a change of policy from above in that. And as the officer has said, these things are a few years down the line. Much can change. there are lots of good intentions in this application, but they're not firm enough. And you've got to have transparency and clarity. If you get off to a bad start, it normally ends up a bad cake. I won't remind you of some of the things that we have got wrong in the past, but I'm sure some of you can remember them. But really consider deferring, and please work out with the County Council, who I'm sure will be a more receptive body now.
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Chair. A more receptive body, and defer this until the 106 agreement and Junction 10 are clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Can I ask Matthew Robinson to come forward as the representative of the applicants?
Thank you, Chair. Members. Just last week, the government published its new National Security Strategy, Security for the British People in a Dangerous World. It essentially sets out how the UK will respond to the growing threats that we all face in this increasingly uncertain world. At the heart of that strategy is a clear objective, and I'll quote, to marshal the country's comparative advantage in science and technology, to create new opportunities for working people, as well as putting ourselves at the cutting edge of cyber defence. Put simply, we need to strengthen our ability to defend against cyber threats and invest in the skills and industries that will secure that future. And that's why this application really does matter. Cheltenham, Gloucestershire, and this project are central to achieving this national goal. Together, we can deliver on this mission whilst ensuring that the investment this project generates brings jobs, housing, and prosperity to our communities. This is a once-in-a-generation, multi-million-pound investment in cyber and advanced technology industries right here in Cheltenham. It has the potential to secure GCHQ's presence in the town for another 50 years and to create, grow and attract new high-calibre businesses and create well-paid, high-skilled jobs. It strengthens not just the local economy, but our national resilience as well. At the core of the application is the Innovation Centre, a landmark building designed to foster cybersecurity innovation. This will be the nucleus of the scheme, open to everyone, hosting events, housing startups, SMEs, nearby large corporates, and allowing the public and the private sectors to work together in partnership in a shared space. Skills development and training are also critical to the vision, with strong links established with institutions like Gloucestershire College and the University of Gloucester. Alongside the employment hub, the application includes much needed housing, offering a mix of types, sizes and tenures to meet local demand, all of which is set within a high quality and green environment that connects seamlessly with surrounding communities, offering them new amenities and opportunities. The Council chose HBD as its development partner because of its proven track record in delivering outstanding places, just like the one proposed here at Golden Valley. This long-term partnership is built on shared values of design excellence, sustainability and ambition, the very qualities we'll need to deliver lasting success in today's challenging economic climate. Like many towns across the country, Cheltenham faces serious challenges, the loss of talented young people to larger cities and a shortage of affordable housing. This application is our chance to address both. It is the driving force behind the employment-led vision for West Cheltenham and will act as a catalyst for further applications to build on. We acknowledge NEMA's representations late yesterday, but reject their claim that this application is premature. The Comprehensive Master Plan and Infrastructure Delivery Plan clearly outline how shared infrastructure will be secured through Section 106 agreements in line with standard practice for major developments. HPD has made sustained efforts to work with NEMA, including revising its plans to add a third access point, despite no obligation to do so. This commitment to collaboration is further demonstrated by HBD's good working relationship with Revantage, previously St Modwyn's, another adjacent developer, who, together with HBD, fully support the Comprehensive Master Plan and the approach being taken towards the delivery of infrastructure. The reality is that NEMA have come forward later in the process, and I understand their desire to catch up and their desire to optimise their position. But the truth is, their site is landlocked, it lacks independent access, and it falls within a natural later phase of development. Furthermore, it doesn't deliver any of the early critical pieces of community infrastructure, such as the school, the NHS facility, sports pitches, or community centres, so it doesn't need to come forward early. NEMA's request for a joint Section 106 across all developers is therefore unrealistic and unnecessary, and it risks delaying the significant amount of progress that has been made to date. We can't let the tail wag the dog. Members, you should be commended for your faith that you've shown in the project and for your patience. Some tough decisions have had to be made, but your commitment has been unwavering, and our passion for the project remains as strong as ever. So today we stand at a crucial moment, one where you can take a decisive step to make this all a reality.
30 seconds.
Thank you, Chair. To secure the future of West Cheltenham and in many ways the future of Cheltenham itself. This really is a legacy decision and it's one that we urge you to seize. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Can I ask Councillor Jeffries now to come forward? You can speak whenever you want.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the committee, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I'm here as a representative of Springbank, a community that borders the Golden Valley site. For us, this development is not just another planning application. It represents a huge opportunity to bring lasting change to our community, but also to Cheltenham as a whole. Springbank is a proud, tight-knit and hard-working community, but it's also a place that's been underserved for many years. We live with the reality of overstretched services, limited job opportunities and rising housing costs. In some areas, we have ingrained poverty and deprivation. So we don't just look at the Golden Valley as a new business park or a new planning application. We see it as a chance to bring real investment, inclusion and energy into our community, also other communities across our town. That's why today I want to say clearly, we support this application and we strongly encourage the committee to approve it. We do so with the belief that this approval must carry expectations that the promises made are delivered, especially for communities like ours. Promises like the jobs and the skills that lift local people. Golden Valley promises thousands of jobs. That could be transformational for residents in Springbank. With young people eager for a break, skilled workers looking for stability, and families that want a better future. This development can open that door if the commitment is there. That's also why we welcome the social value strategy, which identifies Springbank as a key area for employment, skills training and outreach. We fully support that, but we also urge this committee to keep a close eye on delivery. Approving this application should mean unlocking those benefits, not just on paper, but in the real world. We want to see local recruitment targets, apprenticeships linked to our schools and colleges and direct engagement with Springbank groups and residents. Give our community that chance, give Springbank the opportunity. Now, I was going to touch on how this development delivers shared community facilities and public services like health and education, but all of which are extremely important, but I've got limited time, and all those, whilst important, I've only got limited time. I do want to touch on housing, however, and housing is genuinely affordable. It's one of those issues that comes up again and again in Springbank and other communities across our town. Families are being priced out. Young adults can't find anywhere to live near their roots, and if they can find somewhere, private rents are outrageously expensive and social housing is scarce. That's why affordable housing must remain a central part of this application. We strongly support the inclusion of homes for generally affordable rent, a mix of units and sizes and tenures, including social housing, providing families, single people and older residents alike. A thriving community needs key workers, carers, shop workers and teachers. They need somewhere to live. This development must help that need, and it does. Not only for Springbank, for the town, but for the town. Members, for every, as Junction 10 has been mentioned, for every pound that this development has spent towards Junction 10, it's a pound less for affordable housing. We all know the system is broken when it comes to planning. Obviously, more and more is being asked of developers, not just contributions towards roads, education, all these things are asked of developments. Affordable housing always suffers. I know committee members share my frustration when this happens, I do, regularly. So in my view, Junction 10 needs or should be an infrastructure cost that the government deals with. It is, after all, infrastructure, national highways infrastructure. That would be in an ideal world. Until then, I trust the local planning authority, our officers, to find the right solution to the current S106 deliberations. So in closing, let this be a turning point for Springbank and for Cheltenham, and for what an inclusive, exemplar development can look like in practice. Golden Valley can be a game changer, not just for businesses and innovation, but for people. A real opportunity for local people now and into the future. Approving this application must mean delivering the social value, the job, the service and the housing that Springbank and the wider community urgently needs, and this application promises. So as a representative of Springbank, I say again, we support this development, and again, we ask you to approve it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffries. Could you turn your speaker off?
Yes, Chair. Apologies.
Thank you. So that concludes the speakers we have. I'm now opening it up to members' questions of the officers. Does anybody have? Councillor Andrews.
Just touching on the social and affordable housing, the other parts of to the north of this this parcel, as it were, are they subject to viability assessments as well on that?
So the St Modwen's application, that's 1,100 homes in the north of the allocation. That's currently subject to a viability assessment. We've been having quite extensive discussions over the last couple of months, and that is coming to a conclusion, but that is subject to viability, to answer your question. The HBD North application in the north, that is also subject to a viability assessment. Currently, NEMA, we haven't received a viability assessment, but as I touched on, that application is slightly sort of less progressed. So that's not to say that one won't be received in the future.
Councillor Oliver.
Thanks, Chair. Can I just thank Nicole, because we were able to ask a lot of questions at a briefing we had, and we've raised some technical questions in the meantime. So I've only got one question, actually. The houses that are closest to the field, the existing houses, such as Alder Court, can you just give me some comfort as to how close the nearest houses on the new development would be to them?
So it's important to remember this is an outline planning application. So we're not agreeing the exact measurements or prescribing where those dwellings would be placed. That would come at reserve matters. But at reserve matters, we would look at the impact in terms of overbearing, overshadowing, impacts on those residents adjacent. So we would look at the measurements there. But also within the design code, they show typologies there that are either sort of work from home, muse type dwellings, and there's also terraces. So there would be the opportunity for gardens and for that space to be given, and that's prescribed in the design code.
Thank you. Any other member want to ask any questions of the officers? Councillor Bamford.
Yeah, thanks very much for all the information that we got about this application. It's clear it's progressed over a great deal of time, and personally, I can't wait to get on with it. But we've reached something. It seems to have reached something of an impasse with the county council over the contribution to Junction 10. We got a great deal of information from you, and I certainly feel in a position to make a decision about whether or not our position is reasonable. Personally, I think it is. What I couldn't tease out from the various bits of information that we got was the position with respect to libraries. The county council seemed to be objecting to the fact that there isn't sufficient provision within this scheme for libraries. Could you expand on how that difference has come about and if it can be resolved?
So, as I touched on in the presentation, officers had to undertake Section 106 prioritisation as part of this application to ensure that we had the right balance of Section 106 contributions and affordable housing. Libraries is one of the contributions that took a hit in that regard. So the ask is 1/3 of the original ask from GCC. So GCC specified that the money they were seeking in the Section 106 could be used for a new library in Cheltenham, hypothetically. But it was felt that the 1/3 of the ask still overall provided quite a lot of money from the West Cheltenham allocations, because the other applications that are coming forward, they will also contribute to libraries. And that money could be used to improve services in and around the area. Equally, it's within the county's gift in the future to apply for SIL from the funding that will come from this development. So there will be SIL from this development. It will be over £1 million, and that money could be put towards libraries, hypothetically. And it was not an easy decision for officers. Ideally, we would go with the full ask for everything, but as you can see, it was striking that very careful balance between the Section 106 and the affordable housing percentage.
Thank you. Do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, just to clarify, so was there ask specifically around providing a building within the site as a library?
No, it wasn't specifically to provide a new library within the allocation.
Okay, I don't see any hands up to ask any other questions. So we'll go into members' debate. Then anybody wishes to? Councillor Oliver.
My great-great-grandfather came to Cheltenham. He was one of the old Indian Army retirees that we were famous for, as the town was a watering hole. By the time I grew up here, that had virtually died, and we were looking at what type of town do we want Cheltenham to be? Do we want it to be somewhere that just rich people come to? For a time we had a thriving insurance industry and defence industry, but those have shrunk back. I've got children, I've got grandchildren here, and we've got to look to the future. What type of town do we want Cheltenham to be? This development gives us the opportunity to secure the future of Cheltenham in something that will be around for certainly the lifetime of my grandchildren, I hope, providing them with jobs. And it's going to change the nature of Cheltenham, or at least maintain it. We don't want it to. Well, I don't want it to be somewhere that just rich people retire to. We've got to provide jobs for the people who live here. And I think this is a great scheme, and I'm going to support it.
Thank you for that. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Chair. After Councillor Oliver's speech, I couldn't resist drawing comparison to what I said at the Elms Park meeting, which is that the Elms Park development would be a start of a new chapter for Cheltenham. And I think this development would be the second page. And I think it's incredibly important to stress, as Councillor Jeffreys has stressed, as other councillors have stressed as well, the economic importance of this scheme. I think it's very rare that you see a development of this size come forward with such a strong and high number of employment facilities. I think this sort of, the impact this will bring to Cheltenham for not just, those who are already employed, but also for people my age, people my generation who are struggling for work, struggling to pay their rent, struggling to pay the day-to-day salaries. As I always say in my planning speeches, anything we can do to ameliorate this is absolutely crucial. I think it again deserves stressing the fact that Junction 10 is, that the situation with Junction 10 and GCC's comments are not ideal. But on the one hand, we are suffering with the lack of affordable homes. And so as many affordable homes as we can provide is crucial. And on the other hand, 1,700,000 towards Junction 10 is a substantial contribution, in my opinion, for a development of this impact. I think we have to measure it on the impact that this development will have rather than the contribution that is desired from the development. And when we consider all the 4 developments together, we will see developments giving their own contributions based on the impact that they will have in turn. And also not to say that this is, Junction 10 isn't going to be all funded, by SIL money. Like it's been stressed by the speakers, it's a government priority to provide money for this infrastructure. And so therefore, I don't see any real objection to the scheme. I think odour is one thing, and I remember on planning view, the odour was significant, but I'm reassured by what Nicole's mentioned in the report, that Severn Trent will be undertaking works to remediate this. So overall, very, very happy to support the scheme. I think it's absolutely crucial. I support my colleague, Councillor Oliver's comments as well. It's an important part of making Cheltenham what it is.
Thank you very much. Councillor Foster?
Mic on. I'd like to thank the officer for her clear and detailed presentation, and in principle I support the development of this land for housing, but I am concerned about the shortfall in affordable housing. If we and our partners don't keep to our own policy, how can we expect other developers to? The Joint Core Strategy, Policy SD12, states that within the strategic allocation sites, a minimum of 35% affordable housing will be sought, and goes on to say, where possible, affordable housing should be provided on site and should be seamlessly integrated and distributed throughout the development scheme. Surely, on a site of this scale, this should be possible. It goes on to say, on sites where it is not possible to deliver all affordable housing as on-site provision, the residual requirement should be provided through acceptable alternative mechanisms, such as off-site provision or financial contributions. Now, there's a shortage of housing land in Cheltenham generally, so there aren't actually that many off-site sites. And if you follow this policy, you risk a disproportionate number of affordable houses on other sites to compensate for where you don't build them. It's essential, I think, that affordable housing should be evenly distributed among all development sites. Otherwise, we risk creating larger areas of relative poverty. And with regard to developer profit, perhaps it is time that developers accepted lower profits than have become considered acceptable. And for this reason, I cannot support the application. I'm sorry.
Thank you for that. Councillor Steinhardt?
Thank you, Chair. This project, as far as I can understand it, has been a long time in its gestation, and I think it's time that it was delivered. I believe it's got all sorts of positive aspects to it, as have been pointed out, both for the local population, including Springbank, for Cheltenham, for the whole of Gloucestershire, and as we have seen, strategic importance nationally. So I really do think that it's going to produce economic positivity, a lot of housing, mixed housing. I've heard about affordable housing. I can agree up to a point, but I think we have to be pragmatic about pushing this project forward. So I cannot do anything but support this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Chair. I've never worked this hard looking at any planning application. It's a huge amount of walking around the plot, reading, understanding. I was very grateful to the officers for circulating the council's opinion this morning, which clarified for me the dispute about monies for Junction 10. It was very good. Unusually, no legalese. I understood everything. But I don't want to lose sight of the big picture here. I have recently changed my mind. I've always been a pacifist, but I feel the threats to our security, where powerful world leaders are warmongering, are absolutely terrifying for me and for my children and grandchildren. Cybersecurity, it's not just Russia attacking us, there are other nations it would be unpolitic to mention, also very capable and actively disrupting outcomes in the world, in the geopolitical scene. AI is an engine and a threat we do not fully understand yet. Nobody talks about nanotechnology. That is, when you look at it, absolutely terrifying. It could bring new threats that certainly I'm not qualified to assess, but I'm aware of them, as we all should be. And this is not the time for NIMBYism. I can't wait for them to put a spade in the ground. National government must be informed, and we need research, analysis and defence against this new threat to our security. I love my country, I love my town, and I trust our leader, I trust our finance and planning officers, I trust the legal advice we've had to answer all the questions one would naturally come forward with. And I'd like to reiterate what Councillor Oliver said. We have had a pre-presentation and lots of invitations to ask technical questions, which the public might wonder why we're not asking today. It's because we've already done a lot of groundwork. So I shall be supporting the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Derby.
May I say I strongly support the business case for Golden Valley. I worked for 33 years at GCHQ, including several years within cybersecurity, and I know full well the case for it from national security grounds, and I also very much appreciate the case from a point of view of the people of Cheltenham, both now and in the future, in terms of, as Councillor Oliver was saying, giving them a strong basis for good, well-paid jobs. That's proven, there's no doubt. I also support affordable housing. Of course, it's part of the policy of this council, and I support it not only because I'm now a backbencher here, but because I was on the cabinet until recently, and I've seen the commitment that has been made by this council and by officers towards affordable housing. Clearly, details of the Junction 10 contributions are yet to be finalised, but that doesn't mean that any delay should be brought into the development of Golden Valley. It's so important that momentum must be maintained. It states quite clearly in the recommendation that officers will work towards resolving this issue, and I have every confidence that they will do so diligently and pragmatically. We need to have confidence in our officers. We need to have confidence in the Golden Valley. We need to have confidence that something will fairly, equitably be worked out. And the provisions are in there to do so. And if not, then there's still provisions in there to move forward. So I don't accept what Bernard has been saying in terms of the call for a delay. There should be no delay. It should move forward, and the recommendation should be fully approved and go forward as written, and that's what I'm going to vote.
Thank you very much indeed for that. I mean, lots of questions have been raised. I'll come to you in a second. I was just going to say that the Cyber Innovation Centre has been approved at national government, and we are at the forefront of this particular scheme. So, and that being an essential part of this application, I think strikes a high note for its approval, and I would suggest that that's what we consider. But Councillor Andrew.
Yes, let me echo the comments of Councillor Allen over there as regards to social and affordable housing. The very fact that there are viability assessments, which developers have every right to apply, does not in itself mean that we should refuse this. The fact of the matter is, we have still got social and affordable rent housing going into this particular tiny little parcel of what's going in. Elsewhere, we've got 35% with a proper 70-30 split with social as well, I hasten to add. I don't accept having lots of social and affordable housing is going to encourage deprivation. It does quite the opposite. It means people have more money in their pockets, frankly. So I will certainly be supporting this almost purely on the basis of the social and affordable housing that's going into it. And as Councillor Clark has mentioned, the Cyber Innovation Centre, we need to crack on with this because of the threats that are out there. I do note from what Gloucestershire County Council submitted, I believe they mentioned the Secretary of State for Transport seems to think that Junction 10's quite vital. With the new government's emphasis on infrastructure, they should stump up the cash, give it to Highways England and crack on with it as far as I'm concerned. But in terms of this particular little a parcel of what's coming, I will certainly be supporting it.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands being raised to join in the debate, so are you happy that we go to the vote? I will read out the vote. I don't think there's anything for. With the amendments, yeah. Nicole, do you want to come back on anything? No. Okay, so I will read out the officer recommendation to delegate authority to the head of planning to permit the application subject to A, the conditions as set out as amended or substantially similar as may be agreed under delegated authority to the head of planning, and B, completion of a Section 106 obligation and or other legal documents to deliver the infrastructure and other mitigation, as set out in the report at paragraphs 7.352-7.356. I'm not sure if that reads well, but and for the alterations to S106 heads of terms as may be agreed under delegated authority given to the head of planning in consultation with the chair and vice chair of planning committee. And finally, C, in the event that the Section 106 obligations and other legal documents remain unsigned 9 months after this resolution, that the application is reviewed by the head of planning in consultation with the chair and vice chair. And if no progress is being made, delegated authority is given to the head of planning to refuse the application in the absence of an agreed Section 106 agreement. So is everybody clear what they're voting on? So we'll go to the vote. So all those for the recommendation, please indicate, or against, or abstaining. So I think that's everybody who has voted. That is 9 for, 1 against. So that is approved as per the officer recommendation. Thank you all very much indeed. There are no other items to consider. So I close the meeting, and the next formal meeting